The longer you spend in the security field, the more you realize that people are still the weakest link. It doesn't matter how many millions you spend on hardware, people are still the easiest way into any organization. Today I'll be referencing a few articles, but the primary one is by Brian Krebs from KrebsOnSecurity.com. It's a great article and it talks about more than what I'm covering today, so I will link it below if you do want to give it a read. What hackers have been exploiting recently with Apple and Meta are called emergency data requests, or EDRs for short. These requests are unofficially, officially allowing them to access data such as IP addresses, physical addresses, and phone numbers. In a typical situation when a law enforcement agency needs to request data from an organization, the standard procedure requires a subpoena or search warrant signed by a judge. In certain cases, such as those involving imminent harm or death, the investigating authority, such as your local police department, can make an emergency data request, which largely bypasses any review and does not require any court-approved documentation. The thing with loopholes is that while they're there for legitimate use cases, they are also typically exploited. And what hackers have figured out is that if they send these requests, there's no quick and reliable way for organizations to verify them reliably, and by law, they are required to comply in a timely manner. In the case of Apple and Meta, they have teams working around the clock, reviewing and serving these requests as they come in. So at this point, you might be asking yourself, how are these hackers forging these requests so accurately that they're able to trick these billion-dollar organizations? Well, it turns out the hackers are actually sending these requests from compromised police email systems. So in the United States, according to 2020 data, there are roughly 18,000 police jurisdictions in the US that employ around 700,000 full-time law enforcement officers. To make matters worse is that these EDR requests can be sent from police jurisdictions across the globe. All the hackers need is just one compromised email account to send these spoofed requests from, requesting the data that they want. These companies provide the data if the EDR appears to come from an email address connected to a legitimate police department domain and the proper documentation is provided. These types of attacks are nothing new. Hackers have been compromising email accounts, sending fake messages, and social engineering companies for years. Even the TV show Mr. Robot has a scene depicting this. Besides Apple and Meta, another example given in the Krebs article by one of the hackers he interviewed involves Discord. Discord received a phony EDR targeting an 18-year-old from Indiana earlier this year. The document requested the internet address history tied to the phone number used by the target. Discord complied with the request and sent the data. The other interesting fact the interviewee mentioned in the article is that Discord takes approximately 30 to 60 minutes to fulfill these types of requests. The official statement from Discord says that they did indeed receive requests from legitimate law enforcement domains, and they did comply with these requests in accordance with their policies. While their processes confirmed the account itself was legitimate, they later learned that it was compromised. One of the previous companies I worked at, part of my role was analyzing reported phishing emails. I can't tell you the number of times we would look at a reported email, analyze the headers, and determine that it actually came from a legitimate email account. But then after speaking to the user and checking the authentication logs, we would determine that someone compromised the email account and was using it to send malicious phishing emails. So I understand the rock and the hard place these companies and law enforcement agencies are in. In a legitimate use case, these requests are dealing with life or death situations and need to be fulfilled as quickly as possible, which is also their weakness because that means that additional steps cannot be taken to verify the legitimacy of these requests. I do have a couple takeaways from all of this. Government agencies need to stop using email without PGP or GPG for anything official, and some sort of verifiable digital signature needs to be implemented. The second takeaway is for you, the individual currently watching this video. I do think it's unrealistic to say stop using anything on the internet like some people will tell you, but what you can do is minimize the amount of information you're giving these companies, and you can also fake the information when possible. Maybe you're required to fill out the address box when registering for an account. You don't need to put your real address, date of birth. Unless it's a financial institution, they likely do not care if it's accurate. Consider dropping Apple or your stock Android OS phone and switching to a degoogled Android device. These companies cannot give information they don't have.